In this video, I'm going to demonstrate adding a simple health controller for your player in
Godot.
I already have a project started with a player, a world, and level transitions. I'm going to walk through all the moving parts to add a health controller to an existing project. Let's start by creating an event controller script if you do not have one already. I already have one, so I'm not going to create one, but if you need to create one, just right-click on your root, go to Create Folder, create a folder called Scripts, and then inside of that folder, right-click on it, and then create a script and call it Event Controller. We want to add our event controller script to our autoload, so go to Project, Project Settings, and under Autoload, make sure you have added Event Controller Script. In our Event Controller script for our health controller, we're going to add 3 signals: on health UI ready, on health changed, and on max health changed. The next thing we're going to do is add a health bar for our player. So inside your world, we're going to add a canvas layer. And then inside our canvas layer, we're going to add a control node. So make sure our canvas layer is selected, and then we're going to add a control node. Let's call it health UI. And then we're going to save it as a scene. So right click and save branch as scene. I'm going to save mine in a health folder and then scenes. Now we can go into our health UI. Inside our health UI, we're going to add 2 texture racks. So you can just select texture rack and then duplicate that. The first one we're going to call health UI empty. And then the second one, let's call health UI full. Let's start with the health UI empty. I have some assets. I have an image for an empty health and then an image for a complete health. So click on the empty and we're going to drag the image to the texture. For the expand mode, it's going to be keep size, and then for stretch mode, it's going to be tile. And then my images are 32 by 32, so I'm going to change that now. Let's do something similar for health UI full. I'm going to drag the full image to the texture. For this one, the expand mode is ignore size, and then the stretch mode is also going to be tile. And then same thing, it's 32 by 32. Then we can save that, and we're going to add a script to our health UI. So make sure health UI is selected, and then click up here to attach a script. I'm going to save it in the scripts directory inside of health. We're just going to quickly go through a health UI script, and it'll make more sense as we connect all the pieces. I have an onReady variable for my 2 texture racks. I have setters and getters for cookies and max cookies. If you're not familiar with setters and getters, I will leave a link in the description for the docs where it's discussed. The short version is wherever a variable is referenced, the corresponding get or set method is called. So if we go to the bottom, I can show you an example. The on event health changed. We are assigning new health to cookies. So since we're assigning something to the cookies variable, automatically the set cookies will get called, and this new health will be passed in as the value. So going back to the top, our on ready is just connecting our on health changed and our on max health changed. And then we're emitting the signal that the health UI is ready. In our set cookies, so every time something gets assigned to cookies, in this case, new health, this gets called, the value comes in, and this set cookies function is just creating part of our health bar. Then like we said, the get cookies is just simply returning the cookies variable. The set max cookies is setting the total size of the health bar, whereas the set cookies is creating how much health in the health bar we have. The get max cookies is doing the same thing as the get cookies, is just returning the variable. If you remember on the onReady, we're attaching the on health change signal to on event health change. So every time that signal gets emitted, it is going to check to see if the node that is passed is the player. And if it is, it's going to update the cookies variable to the new health that is passed. Likewise, in the on max health changed, the on event max health changed function is getting called. It's likewise checking the player, and if it is the player, it is updating the max cookies to the new max health. At the top, we are exporting a variable player that's going to be a node type. And down here, if you remember, we are checking to make sure the node that is signaled is the player. The reason that we are doing this is the health controller we're about to create can be used for more than just the player. And our health UI is just the player's health. So we need to make sure that when the signal on health changed or on max health changed is sent, we need to validate in this script that it's the player, because this is for the health UI of the player. So if we make sure this is saved and we go back to our world where we had our canvas layer and health UI, you want to make sure the health UI is selected. And then for the export variable player, we just want to assign that to our player. Next, let's go into our player scene and create our health controller. So make sure player is selected, and we're just going to add a node. I'm going to call mine health controller. and I'm just going to move it up here. Its placement does not actually matter. It just needs to be a child of the player. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this branch as a scene, and it's going to be in health scenes. And now we can go into our health controller scene, and let's attach a script to our health controller. And I'm just going to save mine in health scripts. So this is our health controller script. We started by giving a class name of health controller. Just like our health UI, we created getters and setters for health and max health. We are setting the default health for the player at 3 and the max health at 5. In our onReady function, we are connecting to onHealthUI_ready. And if you remember in our health UI script, once the health UI is ready, it signals that it's ready, which means this is catching it. And when it catches it, it's calling onEventHealthUI_ready, which is going to signal the onHealth changed and the onHealth max changed, which, and if we go back into health UI, is being caught in our ready function in the health UI. So essentially what this is doing, as soon as everything loads, it's going to set the health UI to the default health of the player, which is 3 for the health, and then the max health of 5. And if you remember in health UI, when it emits the signal, it is sending the player node, because the health UI is the health bar for the player. The health controller can be used for any node. In this case, it's the player, but you could also use it for enemies in the future. So when it catches the onHealthReady UI, it calls this. The player is this node, which means when it signals the onHealth changed and onMax health change and passes this node, it is passing the player back to the health UI, and that's how it checks if node equals player. Just like in our health UI script, we're using setters and getters for health and max health. In the setHealth function, it is getting the parent and assigning it as the parent variable. And in this case, if we go back to our player scene, we added our health controller into the player. So the parent of the health controller will be the player. If you had an enemy scene, it'd work very similar, where you would just click on the enemy and then click add. You would just go health controller and you could add that. So let's go back into our health controller scene. So this is just a check to make sure it has a parent, and then it's getting the parent variable. If the value that's passed is greater than the max health available, then nothing's going to happen because they already have full health. If it's less than or equal to 0, the player died. Otherwise, we are going to emit the signal onHealth changed. We're going to pass the parent, which if you remember in this case is the player, along with the value, and then we're going to set the health to the value. Now, you might have noticed that we're actually assigning a value to health inside the setHealth, and we said anytime a setters and getters variable is assigned, the setHealth gets called. This is the one exception. Otherwise, this would cause an infinite loop. So if you're in the setHealth and you assign health, it will not recall setHealth, just like with any other setters and getters variable. So the getHealth is just returning the health. The setMaxHealth is doing something very similar as the setHealth. It is getting the parent, it's checking to make sure it has a parent, and then it's emitting the signal onMaxHealth change. It's passing the parent along with the value. One thing I added here is in a lot of games, when you increase your overall health container, it also heals the player. So that's what we're doing here. We are setting the max health to value. We are getting the max health. And since we're getting a variable here, max health, it's actually going to call this function get max health, which we are just returning max health. We're then also getting the health, which is returning health. And we're minusing health from max health and assigning it to new health. And then we're just calling the healed function. So the hurt and healed function work very similar. They are just taking the health minus the value if they're hurt and assign it to health. And for healed, it's taking the health they currently have and adding the heal amount and assigning that to health. And then lastly in this class, we have increased max health, which is taking their current max health and it's adding how much we're going to increase the max health by and assigning it to max health. So now that we have our health controller and our health UI all set up, let's add some scenes to test the functionality of this. The first one we're going to add is a health pickup scene. So let's go ahead and click the plus over here to add a new scene. It's going to be a 2D scene, and we can call this health pickup. Inside of here, we're going to add a sprite 2D. and then make sure health pickup is selected again, and we're going to add an area 2D. And then in our area 2D, you see the yellow warning. It's because we need a collision. So let's add a collision shape 2D. And then let's just go ahead and save this. We're going to put it in health scenes. You can save that. Let's click on sprite 2D, and we're going to give it the texture of the cookie. And then in transform, I'm just going to set the scale to half. And then if we come over to 2D here and click on our collision shape, and then in the inspector, let's add a circle. And then let's go ahead and save that. Then we need to add a script to our health pickup. So go ahead and attach script, and then go up a directory, and we're going to go into scripts. So health scripts, click create. We do not need those. And what we're going to actually do is click on area 2D, and over in the inspector, click on node. And then we're going to do body entered, and then attach it to our health pickup. In our health pickup script, it's pretty straightforward. We have an export variable for the health. This is going to be the amount that the player is healed when they come in contact with this. So we're going to do 0.5. And then when the player enters, we're going to make sure that the body that entered is the player. So we're going to check that. If you were getting an error on this player variable right here, you need to go into your player class, wherever you have that. And at the top, you need to set the class name as player. Once you do that, it'll recognize the player that you're referencing. So let's go back into our health pickup. So if the body that entered the area is the player, we're going to loop through the children of the player. Once we get the child that is the health controller, we're going to call healed on that, and we're going to pass the health, which if you remember is the export variable of 0.5. And if you go into the health controller and you look at the bottom, this is the healed function. So we're going to take their current health, and then the value that's being passed in is the health pickup, which is 0.5. We're going to add those, and then we are setting the health, which if you remember, in getters and setters is going to call this set health and pass this value, which is health plus value. And then lastly, we're going to call self.queueFree, which is going to remove the health pickup item. So we can go ahead and save that. Okay, let's add 2 more scenes. They're going to be very similar, so we're going to add these pretty quickly. So we're just going to go click on the plus here and do a new scene. It's going to be a 2D again. We're going to call it increase health pickup. Then same thing, we're going to add a sprite 2D. And then we're going to add an area 2D. And then inside the area, we're going to give it a collision shape. And then in sprite 2D, make sure inspector is selected. And then we're going to add this to our texture. And then same thing for the transform. We're just going to scale it by half. We can go into the 2D scene and then make sure collision shape is selected. And then let's just do a capsule shape. Let's save this. And same thing, we're going to put in health scenes. And then just like the other one, we need to select increase health pickup. We're going to attach a script. We're going to go up a directory and put it in scripts. Then we can get rid of this. And then on area 2D, click on node. Same thing, body entered. We're going to attach the increase health pickup. And then at the top here, we have an export variable of increase health. This is going to be the amount that we're increasing their total health bar by, which in this case is just going to be 1. We're doing the same checks. If the body is the player, we're going to loop through all the children. Once it finds the health controller, it's going to call the increase maxed health function. Once again, if we go into the health controller, increased max health, and then we're going to do self.queueFree, which is just going to remove it from the scene. All right, one more scene we need to add. This time, let's select other node, and we're just going to do an area 2D. There's going to be no sprite for this. So area 2D, and then we need to add a collision shape. And then if we go to the 2D scene, we didn't add a sprite, so there's nothing here. But if you select collision shape and then inspector, let's just do a rectangle. And then we're just going to leave the default shape. I forgot to name this. Let's call this damage area. Then we can save this, and we're going to save it in scenes again. Just like before, we need to attach a script. Go up a folder. We got an export variable of damage, which is going to be 0.5. And just like before, we're going to check that the body entered is the player. We're going to loop through its children until we find the health controller. And then we're going to call the hurt function. So on health controller, hurt is just taking the health minus the value passed. So let's go to our level and click on 2D. And then let's add some of these scenes to our level 1 scene. So if we come down in our files here, we'll do the health pickup first. So health pickup scene is right here. You can actually just drag that on. So if you remember, this is going to heal us. We can increase our health bar by dragging the increase health pickup scene on. And then for the damage area scene, let's search for that damage area scene right here. We can drag this on. There is no sprite here, but what you could use this for is if you have like an area that's lava or spikes, what you can do is just put it over that sprite or that scene. And then if you come up to the scale mode up here, or you click S, you can actually just resize it. So we made it just a square, and then you can resize it or spin it and put it wherever you need. So for this example though, we're just gonna put it like right, well, we gotta make sure we go back to the move mode. This one, move mode. So now we can actually grab and move it. What we're gonna do actually is we'll just put it back here. Again, you're not gonna see it because it's just a collision shape. There's no sprite. So we can now test this. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so if you look up at the health, we have a total of 5, and we only have 3 health. If we come over here, jump and get that one, you can see we increased our health by 1. Now we can't see the hurt or the damage area over here, but it's somewhere right about there. Yep. And you can see as I walk into it, I get damage. And then if we had our, you can see we got the increase our total health bar. We started with 5, we now have 6, and it fully healed us. In this project, level 1 and level 2 are inherited from the world, so any changes we make to this world scene will affect all of them. So that's why I'm coming back to the world instead of the level 1. So make sure health UI is selected. We'll go to the inspector, and let's just go to layout and then transform, and let's just do 25 and 25. So now if we save that and run it again, you can see now we got some margin off the corner of the window, so I think that looks much better. Well, I suppose.